Somewhere between the simple, clean television lines of the 1960s Starship Enterprise and the detailed, elegant motion picture appearance of the movie Starship Enterprise lies a ghost. In this video, we will take a look at the lost Enterprise of Star Trek Phase 2. One interesting aspect of art, literature and film has to be the path not taken. The discovery of 2001: A Space Odyssey came close to having fins, which would have given it a dragonfly appearance. The TARDIS in Doctor Who might have been a large alien spacecraft if it wasn't for budgetary constraints and a problem-solving moment of genius. There are deleted scenes in film, director's cut, characters written and then discarded before production begins. The film John Wick was supposed to be titled Scorn, but happily it reached us as John Wick. All of these are paths not taken. Star Trek has had many paths not taken, and it is fascinating to explore what might have been. The public experience of Star Trek in the 1970s was one of repeats, the 1960s series on syndication. But surprisingly early after the 1969 cancellation, ideas and scripts for a film were being floated. The best known of these is one called Planet of the Titans, but what emerged from all this activity and interest were plans for a new television series, better known as Star Trek Phase 2. The first season of Phase 2 was to be made up of 13 episodes, beginning with a two-parter titled In Thy Image, the basic premise of which sounds remarkably like the original series episode The Changeling. Other stories included a visit to the Klingon homeworld, warring androids, and Kirk time-travelling to Pearl Harbor just prior to the 1941 surprise attack. Two of these stories, The Child and Devil's Due, would go on to be rewritten for Star Trek The Next Generation, whilst In Thy Image was lifted into the cinematic sphere by order of then-president of Paramount, Michael Eisner, and became Star Trek The Motion Picture. A second run of Star Trek on television would need a new Enterprise, something reflecting the evolution of technology and design, and not just in-universe. The series would also need new interior sets. Matt Jeffries, who had led the design work for the original series Enterprise, was brought in from his day job on Little House on the Prairie to refresh the design. This updating of the Enterprise's appearance from the 1960s original would have to be explained in the series as the result of a major refit. As it transpired, the explanation came in the motion picture. It is remarkable how much of the Phase 2 Enterprise survived to be seen later as the refit Enterprise of the motion picture, the Constitution II class. The reshaped engineering hull of Jeffries was carried forward by his successor Andrew Probert, only with the extra hull detail needed for the big screen. The new bridge was given 2 turbolifts, and this was reflected on the model exterior by twin shaft heads. The saucer's surface was given a grid, which in universe was part of its defense field generation, although in photographs of Don Lu's Enterprise model, this grid only seems to appear on the top side of the saucer. On the subject of defense, Jeffries added a photon torpedo launcher at the front edge of the neck, above the navigational deflector. This singular later became plural as a twin torpedo launcher in the motion picture. At first, the navigational deflector remained the external dish seen in the original series, but this changed. The dish sank backwards into the engineering hull and was made to glow blue. I personally think this was a good choice, as it gave the Enterprise model extra colour and light. Jeffries' engine nacelle pylons became somewhat swept back. An interesting little detail can be seen here, with this snipped off trailing corner, the ghost of which appears on the movie Enterprise as detail referred to in-universe as an emergency flush vent. The warp nacelles themselves were completely redesigned, changing from the cigar-shaped objects with the glowing front ends into a busier, rectangular shape. Initially, the front ends seemed to have been free of decoration, but as the design work went on, what became buzzard collector intakes in universe were added to improve the look. The engine room of the original series had been a large space, excellent for a fistfight, but lacking a central focus. The new design by Mike Miner featured what was, in effect, the beating heart of the Enterprise, the warp reactor core, front and centre. This gave the set a focus and a sense of being in an engineering space with multiple levels. Construction of engineering started in 1977 in Studio 9 of the Paramount lot. I have made this model glow both red and blue, as both colours appear in the test footage stills, and also white for the contrast. Much of the set was updated for the motion picture by Harold Michelson, enlarged and added to, with the intermix chamber and an additional horizontal space running aft. It was redressed over the years, along with much of the rest of the motion picture set for the Next Generation and Voyager. Another legacy of the design work carried out for Phase 2 was the new bridge set. Like main engineering, much of the Phase 2 bridge survived into the motion picture. As we have already looked at how the set was used and reused for the first 4 Star Trek movies in a previous video, we won't go into too much detail here. But let's look at the differences. The conceptual art gave us a clean design. In the centre, there was a big comfortable chair for the captain, an aspect echoing the big chair of the original series. All the other seated stations had to make do with stools. I think this would have been uncomfortable for the actors had they been carried forward. Imagine spending a 4-hour watch sitting here. True, it might have promoted good posture, but their single legs would have constituted a trip hazard. The engineering station is off-centre, giving space for a small fold-down console. This is for the tractor beam, and was to be built when and if the script required it. One particular innovation in this design was the introduction of a bridge transporter. The location of the transporter pad is not obvious in the pictures I have studied, although they might be in a compartment behind these slender doors. But then, why put the controls on the other side of the main view screen? And what is this object? Is it a Harry Potter style port key 20 years before Harry Potter? Probably not. On the subject of these doors, we can note that the compartment formed by them and the bulkheads required survived as part of the motion picture's enigmatic weapons and defense station. Unlike in the film, the station here is turned in the same direction as the other Outer Rim stations, while sitting inside its own little niche. Next to it is the targeting sphere. I have given it a bland green glow, but the finished prop would have had crosshairs. It's difficult to understand the full appearance from the conceptual art. The Lost Enterprise of Phase 2 offered us a look at the path not taken, and in this video I have attempted to reproduce the ship and a few of the interiors, based on conceptual art and a few photographs. With Phase 2, we got an Enterprise between the 1960s original and the refit of the movies, a mashup of both designs. It was a glimpse at the direction Gene Roddenberry and the art designers wanted to take Star Trek, and what the fans would have been given had Star Trek returned as a television series rather than as a film franchise. But for the cinema screen, a more detailed model than that of the Phase 2 Enterprise would have to be developed.